and welcome to the latest Forever Blue podcast. I'm Ian Cheeseman, and this is a Manchester City podcast, ostensibly, but it is also a football podcast. If you're new to this channel, then welcome along. You can subscribe, it's free completely to anybody. If you're watching this on YouTube, then subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get notifications whenever a new video goes up, which includes, of course, the matchday vlogs that I do. As always, I have three guests with me today. One is Manchester City legend Paul Lake, and we have two members of the Forever Blue team there, Stephen and Toby. And I have to give a big shout out to Amar Development UK, who are big supporters of what I do, and also to Edward Mellor Solicitors, who are based in Stockport. Thanks very much to them too for the support that they give to me. And of course, before I even start, I'm going to give Lakey a chance to give a little mention to the former players, which have their own Twitter account and website and all sorts, and are rapidly growing at the moment, Paul. So, do you want to give a shout out to that so people can follow you if they want to?
Thanks very much, Ian. Yeah, it's so the former players club. We have our own links for Facebook and Instagram. We're going to be going on Twitter X. I can't call it X, Ian. I still call it Twitter. You know what I mean? There's just something about that, and LinkedIn eventually. But yeah, we'd love for people to follow us to see what we're doing. But just basically, our values are to connect, to support, and to celebrate. We're trying to get together as many former players. We're looking to reach out to some of the younger former players, players that are maybe in their late 30s, 40s, that maybe watch this, that want to reach out. We'd love to speak with you. We'd love to start to invite you to games and to connect. So thanks ever so much for that, Ian. Really appreciate it.
Well, we're one big blue family, and obviously, the more former players that can be part of your group, and also obviously always welcome on this channel, the better, as far as I'm concerned, because it's a City family, and we saw that yesterday with the because we're speaking the day after the Derby match with the outpouring for Ricky Hatton, which was really sort of touching. I mean, we saw Danny Fanzone on the pitch. Paying his tribute. I know he was a very close friend of Ricky's, and you could see the emotion as he was reading out his tribute and the applause in the stadium. And all credit to the United fans as well for joining in that. I thought was fantastic. You will have met Ricky on many occasions, won't you, Paul?
Absolutely. And, we bumped into him a long, long time ago when he was first starting out. There was Hyde branch of the supporters club back in the day. And it was a little pub in Hyde that I went to. And Ricky, I thought, was this tiny lad when I first met him, you know. But obviously, his notoriety and his skills as a boxer obviously just grew and grew and grew and became the legend that he is and that he was. And when you meet somebody, and it's always telling when someone you meet down the line and then you meet them, say, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 2 years later, and they're absolutely the same person. And that's what we can say about Ricky Hatton. He was the most genuine, authentic, solid individual that anyone could meet. He was respectful, but at the same time, he was good fun. He had that kind of mischief in his eyes, and he was just a pleasure to be around. And it's just so sad that he's just succumbed to the illness. Something has happened. Something has tipped him. Something may have triggered him. I don't know what it was. But it's just so sad, Ian. But all of the former players are so desperately sad. We were looking forward to going and seeing him in the Citizen Suite yesterday, and we couldn't believe it when we heard. And I'm sure, like all City fans and your good self, you've obviously met him on quite a few occasions, and he was just a pleasure to be around. He's just going to be so sorely missed.
Humble, down to earth. I mean, as much as he achieved so much in the sporting forum, he never forgot his roots. He still lived in Hyde, in G Cross, and never lost touch with his proper, true, down to earth friends. And we knew that he was suffering with mental health issues. And I know you've talked about that many times, the things that you've gone through, Paul. So there's a lot of probably even more empathy from you than there is from pretty much anybody else, because you know a little bit of have a little insight into perhaps what his mental state has been in recent months.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about people that have that significant mental health problems, with it being such an illness, is that there's some point something may happen in your life, and it can just be that turning point. You know, some people have a plan, they'll make a plan, and then that's it. So none of his family or his close friends can be to blame for anything. And they'll look at themselves and think, I wish I'd spoken to him, I wish this, I wish that, former girlfriends, partners, whatever. It's nobody's fault. It's just a serious, serious illness. And it just took a hold of him and it became too painful for him. And that will be the case. But it's just a shout out to everybody. If you are in a dark place, please just seek help and speak to somebody. If it's a friend, your family member, if it's, a counselor, whoever it might be, you must reach out because as we've seen, the worst case scenario is that he's sadly no longer with us. And it's such an awful shame for all of his wider family. But come back to that, Ian, once you step beyond that limit, the illness takes you, then often for lots of people there is no way back, but nobody is to blame. It's just one of those really awful things.
Well, the happiest memory I'll finish on this is that I was in Las Vegas for one of his fights, sent out there by the BBC. It was against the Mexican whose name's gone out of my mind. And the morning after, I was in the casino, Caesar's Palace, where his parents had stayed and he stayed, and he was on one of the roulette wheels with his hat on alongside Matthew, and he just said, "Come over here, Cheesy. Come on, I could join in and everything." I said, "I haven't got your money, Ricky." But I stayed and watched him and chatted to him for probably half hour. And I thought, hang on, this guy was in the ring. He was on worldwide television boxing today. And here he is, no security around, nothing like that. Just normal, happy, jolly, welcoming, down to earth Ricky saying, "Come on over, join in." And I'll never forget that moment. And so I can only think good things about Ricky. And
Yeah,
sadly, he's gone, but he'll always be in our hearts.
absolutely.
And I'd like to think, I'm not sure whether I'm not a religious person, but I'd like to think that he was watching that game yesterday and took some solace in what happened. And we know that Phil Foden, for example, had said, being a Stockport lad himself, that he wanted to score and he wanted to do it for Ricky, and he did. And actually, the derby. Even though it seems like a lot of City fans, you'll have seen it on the vlog that I do, were not that optimistic going into the game, although I don't say this smugly or anything, but I was pretty confident that we would win the game. But anyway, it's easy to say in hindsight. Most people didn't seem that confident, but it turned out to be actually pretty one-sided, didn't it, Paul?
It did, Ian, and it was such a pleasure to watch because I mean United did have their moments. All teams have their moments, but I just thought we seemed to set up really solidly. I felt our back line was very, very competent, and this is no disrespect to James Trafford, who we know is a fantastic talent and will be a legend of the game. I have no doubt in the future. There was just it felt like, and the comparison you can see why is you felt like a lot how Schmeichel was at Manchester United back in the day. You kind of felt that with Donnarumma to a degree. You just felt that real confidence, and when you have that behind you, then it does enable you to really, really focus on what you need to do. You're not caught in two minds as much. And that's purely because with James, he would try and play out all the time. You saw yesterday from Donnarumma that whilst he can do, he won't do anywhere near as much as that. And yet, how assured was he? And I think that built confidence for the players around him. And certainly, there were so many fantastic performances from Doku, obviously Phil Foden and Haaland. I thought there was great energy from Reinders and and Rodri is getting there. I think each game he's just getting a little bit more aware of himself and trusting his body again. And Kuzinov in particular, I thought was sensational. And I think overall, like you say, from start to finish, really, you've always felt that there was one team that was going to take it by the scruff of the neck and just as it happened, Phil's header, which you've heard him say he had to do so much with that header. There was no pace on the ball at all, so he's had to give it plenty there. And it was just fantastic to see Phil just with that smile on his face, and just you almost felt there was a weight lifted off of his shoulders, which bodes well for us and not so well for the rest of the Premier League in my eyes. And long may that continue. But again, Haaland, you can never ever dismiss just how potent and how, at times unplayable Erling Haaland can be. He's just got that pace and power and his intelligence, Ian. I honestly thought he was going to be offside. Yeah, I did for the third goal. I mean, I was on the opposite side of I was in the legends, so I was on the other side. But I thought, no, and he just timed it to perfection. And he's run for the second goal as well. And he was unlucky not to get a hat trick. So many opportunities, and we looked a real threat. When Doku is on it, as we saw, he's unplayable. He really is unplayable. And it's that X factor that Phil brings to the table, that Doku brings to the table. That, if that continues, I think we're going to be in a really, really exciting place. Obviously, you look at Liverpool, you look at Arsenal, and they seem to have gone up a level. But there's no reason why we can't reach those heights. And if we can keep players fit, lots of games coming up, lots of opportunity, and they start to raise the standards. I'm convinced that we are going to be thereabouts. But the most important thing is we get players playing football that look like they're happy. You look across the Reds. Did they look happy at all yesterday, Ian? I'd say not. And when you're happy and you're confident and you're thriving in that environment, then you spark off of each other and you help each other to raise those standards. I thought last season we were a 6.5 out of 10. The season before that, we were 8s and 9s out of 10. And that's where the lads have got to be. But it's such an enjoyable game. And hearing the City fans sing about Ricky and sing about City as well, there was no better place to be yesterday. There really wasn't.
Attitude's everything, I think. You can have all the ability in the world, but if you haven't got that attitude, and you're right, I mean, that was Erling Haaland's best game of the four so far, and you could tell right from the word go that he was up for it, and it felt like all the players were up for it, which is great to see.
Yeah.
Whether the Ricky factor was part of that, I'm not quite sure, but maybe it
Mm.
played a part as well. What did you learn from that game, Steve? What did you see that you want to talk about now in this podcast?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to echo what you said about Danny reading out his 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 notes about Ricky, and I thought he did a fantastic job. Obviously, as a good friend of his, it was nice to see somebody that well connected with him to read it out and read it well in them emotional circumstances. Going to the game, do you know what? As we came back from Brighton, I said to my lad and a friend that I was with, and I said, at this moment in time, we could do with turning into a 3-5-2 formation. And, obviously not knowing as much as Pep does. But I thought, and yesterday, which is, I'm quite happy to ask Paul the question as well, is that I felt as though he played a bit more of a 3-5-2 than he did his normal 4-3-3. Obviously, players move about all the time, but the three centre halves, they just made us look a bit more solid as well. And definitely the goalkeeper has that presence. There's just something about him, and we won't play football out from the back as good as we did with Edison, but the goalkeeper has this presence. He just looks massive in the net when you see him, and Andy, who sits next to me, and he's saying, we'll never let a goal in again this season now because he just feels the net and what have you. And I said, well, I hope so, but I can't see that. But he, uh, he has this presence. But yesterday, what I liked as well at times is that because we weren't exactly playing it out like we have done, the ball went up to Haaland and we let him fight for the ball with United centre halves. And I thought, I'm sure he doesn't want to be this player that everybody says, well, he's only touched it 4 times in this half. And I think when we do that, it gets him involved, and you can see that he gets, I don't know, not a temper, but he wants it and he wants to be involved. And yesterday, I thought he grabbed the ball a bit more. He laid the ball off better than he has done. As I think Paul just said there, he's probably his best game of the season so far, and probably for a while that. And it was great to see him there doing that. But Foden was fantastic. I know we spoke before, and you said about Doku being man of the match as well. But
That
I
was
thought
just my
Foden,
my opinion. That's all.
yeah, no, because he was. from what he's produced early on in the season. It was great to see him get involved like that. But I thought Foden back, smile on his face, and not only did we lose Rodri last season, but we lost Phil as well. The two most important players of the season before. So it was absolutely fantastic. I thought that we outthought them and we outplayed them as well. And as Paul said earlier, they don't look happy. But I actually thought they were better than when they beat us last season. I thought they were really poor last season. They somehow beat us 2-1 at home. And I thought they knocked it about a little bit better than they did last season. But we were just too good. And I think it's going to be one of them seasons where we get better every week. And if we can stay away from injuries, and so I'll go back to the original point to Paul if you want about whether a 3-5-2 might suit us a little bit better.
What do you think, Paul?
Well, I understand. The thing is that we know with Pep that he'll obviously look to play maybe a little bit more subtly with different players. So with Ant Nouri, he will get forward, and that will be the expectation. So if you are going to tuck round as a three, then maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that happens inadvertently rather than it's a conscious decision to do that, depending on how other teams set up. I think at the same time with Nico O'Reilly, I thought he was also very, very good yesterday. He was aggressive when he needed to be aggressive, but we know he's played as a 10, for the academy for a long time. So we know we can handle the football in all those areas. So there's not necessarily a bad thing. It would never set out directly to be like a 3-5, but obviously as the shape materializes, and Doku may move positions as he did in the first half, so it becomes quite fluid. But again, there have been times where we've been pressed and pressed and pressed, and it's forced the error, because they've been that aggressive, and that's the thing that Pep's always thinking about. Okay, beyond the press, beat the press, and then see what develops. And it's going to be interesting to see what does happen this year, because if Donnarumma, with what you gain from him in terms of that physical presence and that domination of the 18-yard box, means that he isn't playing out as much and he is going to go a bit longer, then that will force Haaland into the game. And at the same time, God willing, with Marmoush, when I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but again, that sometimes going a bit longer, and maybe it links to that old. Do you remember, Ian, when we've sort of seen City in the past with either David Cross and Kevin Reeves, or with Big Joe and when Dennis running off of him, or whatever that might be, is that other players have to link better and have to be higher up the pitch and have to be able to anticipate what's going to happen there. So perhaps we do miss out that first phase of a press, and maybe Haaland ends up playing a lot more with the football. There have been times where he's been physically dominated. I thought that was the case against Spurs, and I think that would have upset him and angered him. But there again, when you're playing with your back to someone who is all hands and very physical, that's something that you have to contend with. I thought at times I felt for Bernardo Silva, because I don't know about you guys, but I just think that today's footballer has to be an absolute athlete. At the same time, well, can all handle the football, but that athleticism, that power, is something which is ever present. You look at Brighton, you look at Bournemouth, you look at Brentford, and all these players are all that. So if you don't match them in that regard, you are going to struggle. And I thought Bernardo, even though he played as he always does, and he keeps the ball high with the pitch, and he very rarely gives the ball away. There was on several occasions he was just having a fight to try and keep hold of the ball, and he was almost physically pushed, back towards his own goal. And so we're having to recognise that there are other permutations that we have to factor in. Rodri is not there yet. He's not that physical domination that we know he can be, and has that swagger about him. So it's going to be fascinating to see how he fares against Arsenal. But I just feel that Pep's going to have to be canny, especially with so many games and the injuries, and sadly John can't stay fit, and hopefully he can turn that corner for us this season. And I know what that's like to be someone that can't get fit. And it does hurt because it isn't that you don't want to step out on that pitch, that you don't think you can handle it and you're not put your head above the parapet. John does that time and time again, but obviously he's got a deep-seated problem. But I'm just fascinated to see what will happen next. And I wonder what Toby thinks about this with Donnarumma. Is it something that Pep has to, literally re-evaluate how he plays out from the back, such that we accommodate him in different ways? Really, really exciting to see what happens next, to be honest.
That nicely introduces Toby. So tell us your thoughts, Toby.
Just before I do, I just want to say, obviously as well, it was obviously a tragedy to hear about Ricky Hatton yesterday. I didn't know him. I know a lot of City fans did. They've seen him, and when I drove back from the game yesterday, I heard on the radio that he was just those that did know him. He was just such a down to earth, lovely person, just a normal person, someone like one of your mates basically. And hearing fans on Benny read out his sort of speech on it before the game, it was very emotional. And yeah, you guys have said it kind of best, really. But yeah, it was a real tragedy. It was great to hear the City and United fans kind of give the tributes to all that. I mean, in terms of the game, in terms of the goalkeeper, I mean, I've been kind of very vocal about my opinions with Donnarumma. I when he came in, when we were linked with him, I didn't think it was the right option. I think I said that in the podcast I did earlier in the month, or earlier in the season, sorry. I think, under Pep as a goalkeeper, you've almost got to be able to play as a midfielder. I think someone said that on here before, and it's true, and we've seen it with Edison. When we signed Bravo in Pep's first season, it was clear that it wasn't going to work. He ostracized Joe Hart in his first season because he didn't feel he could do that. So to go and sign a goalkeeper, I mean, albeit probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now, who ultimately can't play, or we don't know if he can play. It's uncertain whether he can play with his feet. Was really interesting, but I think Paul makes a really good point that maybe he's kind of playing around. I saw him do an interview before the game, and he was asked. It was at the CFA. It wasn't any of the kind of Sky Sports interviews or anything, I don't think. But it was. He was asked in the interview, do you have to adapt your system to your players, or do the players have to adapt to your system? And he replied, both, which is really interesting because it kind of applies with Donnarumma. He's going to have to adapt to the way Pep plays, but is Pep now going to adapt the system to how Donnarumma is? Is he going to have the goalkeeper be less introduced into the game? This whole ideology of having the goalkeeper be an instrumental part of the game and effectively a midfielder with the distribution has changed English football. And I've said before on the podcast that I believe that it's not just the trophies and the wins and the stats that Pep will go down as one of the greats for. It's also the legacy he leaves on the game, which is part of it is the way he's changed it. So it's now interesting to see him change that ideology and that philosophy to potentially change it. We don't know. That being said, I thought he was unbelievable. He made a save at 2-0 from Mbeumo. He was unsighted. I think it was Guardiola in front of the ball, so he saw it late, and he made an unbelievable stop. And I look at that and I think, would James Trafford or Edison made a save that? I mean, it's an interesting thought, and you can easily say yes or no, but I personally don't think they would have done. That's a top world-class save, and that's what we're going to see from him. And I think it was Steve I can't remember if it was Steve or Paul that said it, apologies guys, but you kind of mentioned that it was that he's kind of a big figure in the goal, the likes of the Schmeichel at Man United, and they're right, he is. So it's very interesting, and I'm happy to sit here and kind of eat my words a little bit, because I was very skeptical, and there's still a long time to go. It's only the first game. But what he had to do yesterday, he did very well. So let's see how it goes. I actually think from the game, and I never thought I'd say this ever, but Rodri was our worst player. He was. I mean, I'm not going to blame him. He's just come back from an ACL. It's a long injury. It's not a nice injury. There's people who wait years to fully recover from an ACL, and it's going to be that nervousness, that lack of confidence, and that showed. And it'll take time, but he'll get back up to it. I thought Foden's kind of tribute to Ricky Hatton. I mean, it was only fitting that he went and scored the first goal in a Manchester derby as well. I think both him and Haaland are now top 5 goal scorers in Manchester derbies out of Man United and Man City players of all time, which is an incredible stat.
In the
It-
Premier League era.
in the Premier League era, sorry, not of all time. So yeah, Foden was amazing. Haaland's just, I mean, Haaland, who comes onto the podcast. I don't want to diss him too much. I'm not dissing him with anything because he's not here. But he is worried and said about Haaland not really contributing much other than the goals. In times gone by, and he's in some ways been proven right. But Haaland showed that other side of his game yesterday. He put that wonderful ball for Reinders through. He was tracking back. He was making defensive contributions from free kicks and corners. So if he continues to do that, maybe not missing the 1 yard sitters, but other than that, if he continues to do those sorts of things, that's an incredible all-round player that we'll have. Doku is someone I've worried about not having the end product, and that was incredible. Yes, that assist where he just skipped past Luke Shaw for Foden's goal. He then crossed it. It came back to him. He sort of got back up and then managed to find Foden. It was an incredible assist. When you look at it, he was off balance. He just tried to cross the ball, and it was an incredible assist. And yeah, it was just a fantastic all-round performance. There was, as I say, surprisingly, Rodri was our worst player. And it's always great to see them leaving at 70 minutes. His fans. Yeah, I'm really happy from the result yesterday.
I'm going to qualify what you've said there, with your permission, Toby. I'm going to
Go
say
for it.
Rodri was our least best player rather than worst.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, yeah. No. That's fine. I mean, I agree with that because I sat here all season last year saying that Rodri missing is the huge problem, and we're not going to win anything without him. And I was proven right. So yeah, the least best player we'll go with then.
You're a qualified. Next week, we've got a new member of the Forever Blue team coming on, who is a long-standing physiotherapist. So I'm sure he'll talk about this in a lot more depth. But you're a qualified physio as well, Paul. I mean, one of the questions that people keep asking is why City keep getting so many injuries. Steve was telling me before we started recording that Aït-Nouri had played 37 out of 38 games last season. He comes to City and suddenly he's missing. Cherky's missing. Obviously, we know about the Stones scenario that's been long going. Is there an issue, or is that just bad luck? There's so many injuries.
Again, when you see the pattern of the training and the expectations, and I worked as the COVID officer at City when obviously I was pitch side, pretty much with Pep and the team, and seeing how hard they work. And it's interesting because you don't do miles, you don't just do fitness work for the sake of it. It's all with the football. The intensity is so pervading across all elements of the training sessions. And I think the intensity of the training that might have taken one or two players by surprise. And I think that could be an element in it potentially. There's also going to be elements of bad luck. And again, it's a bit like with Rodri, because when you have an ACL, it's like if you guys are driving, or if you're riding a bike or whatever, that muscle memory is there. But sometimes with an ACL, it's just that there's so many body positions that he will adopt during 90 plus minutes of football that he's almost got to get to the stage where he doesn't think about every single movement, and at times he will be. And that's it. And when you're caught in that kind of indecision for that split second, you can mistime a pass, you can overreach, you can give the ball away. And that's what was happening yesterday on a few occasions. And you just know that as time progresses, he'll just adapt, and he'll get better and better and better. And he'll become the player that he was. Now that might be next season before he reaches those heights, but you have to give him that time. But you're right, Ian, with a lot of the injuries, and you can look at stats, and you can level anything at anybody at any time. Before John came to City and since his time at City and blah blah blah. You look at Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw might might play the next 2, 3 seasons back to back and not miss a game, but he's missed a hell of a lot. Kevin was out for a long period of time. So it's a combination of all those things. There's no one reason. There's no overloading in training, poor training techniques, this, that, and the other. It's just unfortunate for some injuries. It's a perfect storm. But I just wanted to sort of say as well that after the Wolves game, there was pundits. City are back. City are going to be this team. City are going to challenge for the title. We get beat by Spurs. City have gone. And I think too many individuals are too reactive towards one game. And every game, now we're back. Now we're this. Now we're that. We lose a game. Oh, we're gone. We can't handle it. We're looking for answers with every single game. We're trying to project that into a season, and we just got to calm down. Just got to be level-headed. We've just got to trust in Pep, and maybe we're not quite going to be at the level for Liverpool and Arsenal this season. But who knows? But he's got an opportunity to develop different players in different ways. We've got this keeper. That might be a different, attention. And Pep will love a challenge as well. People are always talking about the fact that he's been sussed out now. You play with a low block, and literally that's it. City are done with. Well, Pep's got to evolve and find a way, and he is that kind of character that he'll want to do that. He will do that. So I think we as City fans have just got to be a bit more patient. Okay, last season was last season, but before that we were breathtaking for 6 seasons, and we were so successful. And a lot of those players now have moved on. So we just got to recognise where we're at, and all those players will be desperate to be the best that they can be for Pep Guardiola and for Manchester City. And I've no doubt that we will be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. And one more thing, and I'll shut up. Fan zone, Danny, as we know him, just to finish off, because you guys have mentioned him. I'm one of his favourite players, and he's told me on countless occasions about getting a restraining order and all this, having a bit of a laugh with it. But absolutely, so respectful of him yesterday, because he was very emotional, and it took a lot of courage to be able to stand there and speak about a very close friend. So hats go out to him, but that's the pride that he's got for his friend and for such a legend at Manchester City. And Danny, in his own way, a bit like yourself, Cheesy, is becoming a legend himself, which is lovely to see.
Yeah, he represents the club very well. You talk great sense as always, Paul. That's why I love talking to you. But in terms, let's talk about one more thing before we look forward, which is the right back slot, which everybody keeps saying, why did City not sign a right back? And obviously we know that Rico Lewis has just had his contract extended, and he can play in that position. We also know that we have another option at right back, who some players aren't so keen on, or some fans, I should say, are not so keen on. I've got no problem with the young man who plays in that position as an alternative. But yesterday we saw Kushinov play at right back. Is he the solution, Steve? What do you think?
He was very, very good yesterday, and he's obviously very quick, which he's still a little bit rash, isn't he? Shall we say that to be kind? I think if we can control him flying through a few people, then that'd be fantastic. He's an option. I also think that John Stones could be an option if Pep wants to play with the footballing right back. I just think them two are better options than Rico and Nunes. I think they're better. I'm not saying better footballers, but I'm saying they're better for that position. In my opinion, again, let's state that as well. Yeah, I thought he had a very good game, and I think that speed. We've lost Kyle Walker recently, and his speed got him out of a lot of trouble sometimes. Kyle wasn't the best footballer, but he was a good defender, and he was quick. So the same may become of Kusanov, who he's had a good start, really. He didn't play a lot of games. He started, and we saw him. He had a terrible, terrible start with the first 5 minutes against Chelsea, but then more than made up for it. And then he didn't get picked towards the end of the season. But if you analyse our games at the end of the season, in our last 11 games, we only let 5 goals in. So you can see why the defence remained the same. But I think he's good, and he can play that role. And again, as Paul says, there's a lot of our players learning roles and they're learning under Pep because they're still new and what have you. I thought Reinders yesterday going off scope a bit. Reinders' movement off the ball is absolutely fantastic. A lot of people say, "Oh, he's not doing anything," and what. Just if you get a chance, just watch his movement off the ball. He's everywhere and he's giving options to people. So, and going back to Kusanov, yeah, he can play there, and I think it would help us out. His speed would help us out, and he's more defensive minded than the other two.
Well,
And
Nunes is the flying winger. Rico's the one who tucks in. He's the
yes,
defender, isn't he? It feels like the. I don't want to be oversimplified, but that feels like the assets they most offer.
yeah, I just think Rico gets pulled out of position a little bit too much because if in my mind, he's more concentrating on going forward than he is as a defender. You know, that's just again my opinion, and I'm not slating for it because I don't think he gives less than 100%. But I think Kusanov may be the better option of the three, shall we say? Anyway,
Right, let's move forward now and look what's to come because City have another two big games this week. And for what it's worth, my three penneth is that we've seen the new format of the Champions League, and City last season won three, drew two of the eight games that they played in this league stage. And albeit that they only went through in 23rd position, they went through. So it feels to me as if the jeopardy in the early stages of the Champions League is not the same as it used to be in the group stage. Now, of course, City would prefer to finish in the top eight and miss a round out. And the new rule this season, if you've not noticed it, is that there are the top two guarantee home advantage in every round all the way through to the final. So there's an added incentive to finish in the top two of that top eight. But none of these games, certainly early on in the league, feel to me as if they're do or die. So I'll throw this in as well. City play, of course, on Thursday against Napoli, and that means that Kev comes back, Kevin De Bruyne. Can't wait to see him play again. I wish him really well. And I wonder if he will play a big part in that game, of course. And so there's that game, but it doesn't feel like do or die to me. And then a big game against Arsenal next Sunday. And I know that we have a squad, and we've talked about the options at right back. And I don't think in the old days when you were playing, Paul, it was a bit more of a this is the first 11, a bit more anyway. I'm not saying it never varied, but these days it is so much of a squad game. So when you're looking at certain opposition, you'll think, we need Kusanov because he's quick and he'll tackle. In another game, it might be that you want Nunes to be bombing forward or whatever, or you need Rico to add an extra body in midfield. So in the same way, the team selection will vary from match to match in all the positions. By the way, I'll just throw this in as well. Love to see Gvardiol back. Love to see him back in that game. I think he's a big player. But anyway, going forward with these next two, do City, if they do such a thing anymore, prioritise the Arsenal game because Napoli isn't quite as crucial? Or do you guys feel as if City have to make another statement, build the confidence from the derby before they go to Arsenal, and then concluding that, what's your feelings about Arsenal? So let me start with you, Steve. I've thrown a lot at you there, but what do you reckon? Two big games to come anyway in this week, aren't they?
yeah, but they're both very big games. I mean, it's similar to last year when they were Inter Milan were our first opponents at home, and we got a 0-0 really, which was quite a bit of a disappointing game. No, I think as a club we would like to make a good start on Thursday. So I don't think we can sort of take it easy Thursday to concentrate on Sunday. And no, let's if we can make a good start and get 3 points because the points that we dropped last year, it affected us, didn't it? And who we played in the playoff round,
Yeah, but
and
that could have that was down to a certain amount of luck. 'Cause you wouldn't necessarily have predicted that we'd have played Real Madrid because you'd have expected
no.
them to finish in the top eight, wouldn't you?
Well, look at the team that won it. They were below us when we played in Paris, and they went on to be a fantastic team. So that I just think it's the old adage in it where you approach every game for its own merits. And in my opinion, I'd like to see us win on Thursday and not lose on Sunday. Um, when we went to Arsenal last year with the team that wasn't in the most confident of places, we give a goal away early on. And then for the next 50 minutes of that game, I thought we were the better team. We got the equaliser. We give a loose pass that let them score for 2-1 more or less straight away, and then just give goals away for fun for the last 15 minutes. So, although, yes, they do look better than us at the moment, as we've said, I still think we can get a result. And I think it's important not to lose on Sunday. But let's try and get a good start on Thursday.
Your thoughts, Toby?
I mean, the Champions League is becoming a lot more Americanized, isn't it? I mean, if anyone watches NFL or any of the American sports, they have whoever finishes the highest in their division gets home advantage throughout the playoffs. So it feels a little bit like that with the Champions League, but that's a whole nother kind of point and conversation. Look, I think the way Pep looks at it, and the way we know he looks at it because he said it. Whether he's telling the truth or not, we don't know. But he takes it game by game, and I think that's how we should do it and how we should think about it. We've got an important game on Thursday. Napoli are top of Serie A at the moment. De Bruyne's got 5 goals and then 1 assist so far this season for Napoli, which is obviously a very incredible start. It's a different league. It's a different kind of set of competitors, and some would argue that it is an easier league than the Premier League, but I don't think that really matters. It's obviously going to be a bit of an interesting return. They look really, really good, and then of course we play Arsenal on Sunday, who obviously Steve didn't hasten to mention we got absolutely battered by last season when we went there. I think an important thing to remember when we visit a team like Arsenal is when we won the league for the 4th time in a row, which if anyone is a Man United fan who's listening, probably listen to that one because they've never done it. Is when we won the league for the 4th time in a row, Rodri said in his interview on the pitch after the game, after the trophy lift, is when Arsenal visited the Etihad, the mentality wasn't there. They came to draw. They came for a 0-0. And when we go to the Emirates, we go to win. And I think that's an important thing to remember. I think the mentality of the team. I'm not saying we're in a title race. I'm not saying we're not in a title race, but I think that's the way we've got to look at it. The only ground I've ever really gone to and gone, a draw would be a great result here is Anfield. So I think, going away there, I think it's going to be a tough game. They look really good this season. They've made some great signings. Zuberman, Eze, and Madueke looks electric. So it's going to be even more of an issue for us. I think we just need to go there with the mentality that we've had over the last few seasons, and hopefully just try and get the win. But I think it's important to not prioritize, but just focus on that Napoli game for now and take the momentum, because it is a momentum game, football, right? We've just won the derby. It's an incredible high. The derby is the one game a year where I never think about the consequences in terms of a title race or in terms of being in a title race or the top 4 hopes or whatever it might be. A derby is the only game of the year where I go into thinking this is a game I want to win just to beat Man United. I don't care about what everything else is. I just want to beat them. So we've come off that sort of euphoria. Let's go and get another win on Thursday. It's at home. We've got that advantage. Let's hope Kevin doesn't come back to haunt us too much, and then let's take that momentum to the Emirates on Sunday.
So, Paul, put it into perspective for us. You played the game. You know what it's all about. What are your thoughts on these next 2 games?
I think Pep will, as Steve has alluded and as Toby has said, is it's not about prioritising. It's about recognising the importance of every game on its own merits. And the fact of the matter is that Pep will be reading from last season, because he realises how exciting but also how important it is for the whole club that we do have more longevity in Champions League. So I think he'll want to start on the front foot and get a great result, and the players will be excited by the opportunity. Obviously, Kevin coming back and the quality that Kev has is always going to be a bit unnerving for us. Because if it does chime and he has hit the ground running, then you don't know what's going to come. But it's going to be a game where every side of the stadium is going to be singing his name. So it's going to be a bit of a strange one, to be honest. But it's lovely at the same time because he is a Blue and he always will be a Blue. But I do feel that Pep will not prioritise, but he'll stress the importance of of winning as many games at home as he can in Champions League. And then, like you say, coming to a point where he's not going to be able to let his foot off the gas ever. And that's not how Pep is, but he'll want to start well. And he'll recognise that the momentum, that word, is something which is huge. And again, come back to it. We won against Wolves. Everyone thought, wow, look at this. Here we go, here we go. And then we lose 2 games. And it's obviously that's how it can ebb and flow. With a new team, inexperienced at times, and it's uncharted territory for quite a few of these players as well. It's Donnarumma's first game with that group of players. There's lots of different opportunities, and so it's going to be fascinating. With Arsenal, as the guys have said, they look very, very good. And it feels like at this moment in time, both Liverpool and Arsenal are at a different level. They just feel very assured in all areas of the pitch. But when all said and done, it's an opportunity for us to really raise the stakes to see, well, who's going to turn up? Who's going to be that player? Who's going to be consistent? Who's going to take that by the scruff of the neck? Who's going to lead by example? So Pep's going to be looking to certain players. There's going to be a really exciting opportunity, but and Pep will never go just to try and get a result. That's not how he is. He will never do that. But getting a draw at Arsenal, at Anfield, those kind of results are something that we would take now, or sat here talking. But I'm really excited about the Champions League this season, and I think whilst it isn't a priority for Pep Guardiola, I think it is for Manchester City. I think it is for the club, and they'll want to really use that as a springboard to take that form into every single game, but also enable other players to reach the levels that they have to get to. Rico Lewis is a case in point. We know he's a talented footballer, and every fan is going to have their opinions about certain players. But with the quality that's around him, if everyone's at their best, Ian, then I think that it's a great opportunity for us to grow this season, second half of the season, to really hit the ground running, and then hopefully we'll be thereabouts in the league, in all of the trophies, and have another exciting season as a Blue.
Final question in this podcast to you, Paul, is have you got a favourite memory playing against Arsenal?
I haven't. I've got a horrible memory of wearing that yellow kit. When we got absolutely thumped, and it's just when you walk into that. I never forget walking into the changing room, and there was a glow off these shirts. It was like they were almost illuminated. And thinking, what on earth is this? So it felt really odd. Never, it just didn't chime well that I'm wearing a yellow kit for Manchester City, and probably I was reading too much into it at the time and making excuses, but it was certainly a strange time because no one saw it coming. There was no one mentioned it at all till we got in, in the changing room at Highbury. And he was like, "Oh my goodness, what's going on here?" But when we played them at home, Arsenal was strong. We drew 1-1. I set Gary Megson into the channel inside the 6-yard box on the right hand side. He's volleyed it across. I think it was or to Whitey and Whitey across it for Mega or vice versa. But we had a really good game, and that was a team of Steve Bold, Tony Adams, Winterburn, Dixon. It was Michael Thomas. It was all those players. Ian Wright up top. So it was a very, very good side. Paul Merson. So to get a result against Arsenal when they were top dogs at that time, that we had to step up. But we weren't able to maintain that consistency. That's why I've got so much respect for this team now, because they're having to do it week in, week out. 6 out of 10 is not good enough in a Manchester City shirt. It's got to be 7.5 to 9.5 out of 10 week in, week out. If we get to that stage in, we're going to have another fantastic season.
You're very consistent as a pundit, Paul. I'll give you that. You're an 8 or 9 out of 10. No doubt about that. Thanks very much for joining us, Paul, and to you, Steve, and Toby. Thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free. And of course, a big shout out to M&M Artwork and Mirrors, another one of the people who support what I do. So big shouts out to them. I'll be doing all this again after the Arsenal game, when we will be joined by our new member, who is a qualified physio and will no doubt tell us all about his thoughts on injuries and how recovery works and all that sort of thing. I'm sure that'll be fascinating. In the meantime, enjoy your week. If you're going to the Napoli game, look out for me. I'll be doing my match day vlog as ever, and down at the Emirates Stadium on Sunday. So have a good week, because this week, more than any other week, when you've won in the derby and won so well, isn't it great to be a Blue?